Hey everyone, and welcome to 1.21 Gigawatts. I am Peter, that is Matt, and we talk about movies on this show. And on this episode, we are talking about Dunkirk, which is the new Christopher Nolan film about obviously the Dunkirk evacuation in World War II. Quite notable. I feel like Christopher Nolan's quite an event filmmaker. Like I feel like it's a big deal whenever he's got a new one coming out. You know, I remember being really excited for Inception and Interstellar. Obviously, the Batman movies, which are kind of events in and of themselves anyway, but. I feel like he's made such a name for himself that any film he's putting out every couple of years, it's a big deal and everyone goes to see. So we'll start spoiler free, as we always do, and we'll give you warning before we get to spoilers halfway through. So yeah, we'll get into it. And now, I think first things first, we're both fans of Nolan.
Yep.
But I love his stuff. I mean, we just did Memento on 1.21 in Flux, and man, that movie holds up. It is.
Does it? I need to give it a rewatch. It's been a couple of years since I've seen it.
Honestly, it gets better with each rewatch.
Yeah.
It really does, because you start to think about what the ending means for the rest of the story, and
Right.
or what the start of the story means for the rest of the story, depending on how your point of view.
It's odd that he came out of the gate with such a unique way of telling the story, and then each film after that became a lot more, so what I'm looking for, not as unique, but like it had the Nolan flair, but it was traditional. That's the word. Storytelling.
Yeah.
You had Insomnia and Batman Begins and The Prestige.
But certainly Prestige. I mean, I would argue that Prestige's narrative structure is actually even more unique and complicated than Memento's is.
I feel like it's a magic trick where if you know what you're looking for, like it's not like Memento where you have the black and the white and then the color and you're piecing it together.
Memento's very clear, but it's also got a very clear structure where it's part of it's going forward and part of it's going backwards, and it's very easy to see after a couple of scenes. Okay, I understand where each of these is going. You can place them in your head. Whereas Prestige, you've got narrations within narrations within narrations, and it gets very complex.
It's like Inception.
It's kind of like Inception. Well, here's the point I think of this past couple of minutes of conversation is, one, we both really like Nolan, and two, he is often known for playing with narrative structure and doing things in an interesting order, or sort of being inventive with it, playing around with it. So Matt, I mean, I don't really feel like I need to sum up the plot. It's basically a bunch of soldiers are trying to evacuate France because the Nazis are closing in on them and they're trying to get home. It seems very difficult, almost impossible, and everyone kind of felt like, oh, we're screwed, and that's kind of the plot of the movie. So Matt, did you like Dunkirk? Did you enjoy it?
On a technical level, I enjoyed it very much. On a story level, there was a lot to be desired story-wise. So it's this weird thing that I enjoyed, that it was a story on three fronts. Like you got the sea, land, and air aspect of an evacuation versus I feel like another filmmaker just would have stuck with the one group and told the story from there. But here, Nolan has like it, again, it's on three fronts.
Yeah, I have to say, I am very conflicted with Dunkirk. I'm not typically super excited about war movies. There's obviously some that are great and they kind of stand above the rest of them, but I'm not particularly excited by war movies. So, when I heard Nolan was doing a war movie, I was kind of like, oh, okay, right. I was kind of hoping, okay, Nolan hopefully will transcend what I typically think of as a war movie, and in some ways he does, but I kind of, like, my first instinct when I heard he was doing something like this was that, okay, I'm probably going to be very impressed from a filmmaking standpoint, but I've got a feeling I'm going to walk out of it thinking it's my least favourite of his films. And honestly, that kind of held true. Dunkirk is my least favourite Nolan film, and I'm including Following in that, which I actually really like Following.
Yeah, so I'm not that down on it as you are. Not that you're down on it.
Yeah, I'm not down on it.
I still agree that it's a good movie. Like I'm still telling people to go to the theater and see it because it's worth seeing on the big screen. Because Nolan's an event movie,
It's
and it has a summertime feel to it. And see, my favorite filmmaker is Steven Spielberg, and I haven't been able to tell people to go see a Spielberg movie in a long time. So just the fact that this isn't, I don't think, Nolan's best effort, but it's still worth a watch.
Well, here's the weird thing though, is like technically it is like a marvel. Like what he does with this camera, some of the shots, like the opening like 10 minutes was like captivating. Like it was really drawing me into what was going on. Like all the stuff with the planes, with Tom Hardy's character, all look gorgeous. There's a lot of really good stuff in here.
But can I ask you a question? What was Tom Hardy's character's name?
I've got a question for you. I need to I'll rebuttal you with another question. Outside of George, name me one character.
That's my point. That's my point. Is I wanted to like Tom Hardy's character, but there's nothing much to go there outside. He's a pilot, and he seems to be really good at it. Like the obstacles that Nolan gives him to deal with.
He seems good and he seems dedicated. That is the one sort of character point you get from him. He's kind of fearless. But the problem I have with this movie as a whole is I think every single scene on its own is actually fantastically done. It's just that there's not really... Like, he went for this kind of relentless, like, constant tension. The problem is, though, is that I never really cared about any of the characters all that much because there's not really much to them. So I was impressed for the first, like, 20, 30 minutes. And then it started to get kind of old because I got to the point where I'm like, okay, I need to start to connect to these characters, and it just kind of never came. It just kept doing the tension thing. It kept doing the, the ship's filling up with water, or there's bombs coming, or there's this, or there's that. And it kept doing the thing. And it made me actually kind of compare it to Fury Road in my head a little bit, because Fury Road's known for being kind of relentless, and it's this, it's all one big chase movie. And it is, to a point. But that movie really understands how to build the character.
Development.
It builds character. It still has downtime from here or there, but it builds, even during the action scenes, it builds character, and it builds these strong characters. Whereas in this, I think even intentionally to a point, you can't even really tell a lot of the soldiers apart. No. They're all wearing the same uniforms. They all have very similar, faces. It's very difficult.
I wanted to know more about those characters. I mean, I get it, and then I feel when we get to the C section, I felt Mark Rylance was doing a hell of a lot more than what was on that page. Just the way he carried himself. He had that British stoicism.
The C section was definitely because the whole C segment of the movie is like the idea that the public fleet has been called in. Like they've asked the public on all their sort of privately owned boats to go out and try and help with the evacuation, and that's he's on his way with his son, and then this kid named George who's a teenager. And honestly, that's definitely the time you get the most out of characters, because they actually
spend time with them,
use their names a lot more. It still feels a bit truncated, but they do use their names a lot more. And you get a sense of like a relationship between them, whereas the rest of the movie, like especially the main sort of soldiers on the beach, like all the ones trying to evacuate, they are very like everything's just from the word go. It's survive. Whether it's water, whether it's bombs, whether it's other German soldiers or whatever, like it's all survive, and it keeps doing that. And like sometimes you can be light on character development, you can, and it can work. Like there's certain types of movies where it does actually function, but this one I think is almost a bit too relentless, to the point where I like when it got to the ending, right, and it got to there's moments that are supposed to be these grand moments of like, oh, thank God this has happened, or thank God this, and I just kind of wasn't feeling the emotion. And I'll be honest, like, when I say it was kind of getting old for me, the tension and the constant, this constant keep doing the big tense stuff, all of it was really well shot, all of it was really well filmed, all of it was scene by scene done very well, but that's all it was. It just kept being more of that. And then by the time I got to about halfway through, I was starting to get a little bit bored, because I was just kind of noticing this is all it is, and I'm not really getting any deeper connection. And I know this is a weird complaint to make about a movie that's based on a true event and all the rest of it, but it never really does anything surprising. Like, it just kind of plays out the exact way it seems like it's going to play out from the word go. There's no, and I don't want to use the word twist, but there's no arc for anything. There's no subversion of any expectations.
No, it's just a straight line. Like,
yes.
It starts, it's like a train. Once it starts rolling, it keeps going till it reaches its destination. And that's where I feel like he got hung up on the presentation versus the content, because there's the parts where the three stories start to overlap, and like you recognize the boat.
Well, that's something, that's something we've not mentioned actually. The three segments, they're all different times. We start to land and it says it's a week. It starts the boat, it says it's a day, it starts the planes and it's an hour, and the idea is that they're all going to like meet up. The ending point's going to be the same for all of them. They're all going to eventually overlap. But that's how long we're spending sort of time-wise with each one. And that's where the narrative stuff comes in. And that's actually one of my biggest complaints of the movie, actually.
Oh, yeah?
Is I thought it was going to do more fun stuff with that. Because there's a point where a character from one appears in the other, right? And I went, oh, this is interesting. What are you going to do with him? And then it did nothing.
Yeah, we expected more like a Rashomon thing where
Kinda,
you see it from where you see it from different perspectives, but it's not exactly what you see. Like, because in Rashomon you're getting the same story from all those different perspectives, but on each retelling you learn a little bit more about what the actual truth is, right?
Yeah.
And I felt here, not that there needed to be a truth, but again, you named one section the mole, so you're kind of expecting, at least I was, some spy subterfuge, or maybe it's going wrong because of this character. And there's nothing. You're staying with the same guys, and you're seeing the same thing over, but it's the same exact thing that you've already seen. You know?
Yeah.
And I felt there were spots to change it up, like when with the pilot. You know, we see what happens with him, and then we just get his perspective the rest of the movie. And it's like, well, okay, this is what we saw from the pilot's point of view, but now we're seeing it from the C's, point of view. So I don't know. It was
again. I want to reiterate it. Like,
disappointed.
In terms of presentation, it is absolutely immaculate. The filmmaking here is gorgeous. The opening is the strongest because at that point I'm still expecting to like grow more attached to, because it's quite typical to open with like a tense thing and then grow to with the characters afterwards. That's fine.
When you see that character try to get water and the hoses have been shut off because it's in war, like they are in a war zone, I thought that set up the stakes really well right there, because
you get a sense that they're desolate, hope's kind of dwindling, and you see lots of soldiers sort of die just sort of randomly, and they just kind of have to accept that that's a constant possibility. And it just like it does this thing of, because I remember one of the things that got me actually excited about this movie is when either Nolan or someone else involved in it said that, I mean, it's set during a war, but it's more of a survival thriller than it is anything else. It just happens to be during a war, and that got me kind of excited. And then, but honestly, the end result, I kind of feel just as cold as I typically do with a war story.
It's very sterile though. Like we've talked before. So I brought up Spielberg for a reason. People consider Saving Private Ryan to be like one of the best World War II movies ever made, and I hadn't watched it in a while, so I gave it a rewatch last year, and it's very saccharine and it lays emotion on very thick. So I feel like Dunkirk's almost the inverse, where it's so sterile and there's no, like, nothing needs to be saccharine, but there should be some emotion there, and there's not. Like, I get that these guys are trying to survive, but it's a war movie. I signed up for that when I bought the ticket. Like, I don't need to be reinforced that this is the way war is. War is hell. That's kind of always the point of these movies. So by the time you get to the end, and it does end so cold still. Like, there's no change. Like you said, it's a flat line. And I expect more out of Nolan. And even though none of his movies are actually warm, like, I'm going back through his, I feel like Interstellar, weirdly, is almost the warmest because there's that family dynamic at play.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard people say Nolan's characters are typically quite cold, and they are colder to like compare them to a lot of other things and a lot of other movies. But I think this was completely devoid of any character whatsoever. Like, I had no connection to anything, whereas I did have connections to most of his other movies.
Yeah,
like
me too.
Take your pick: Inception, Interstellar, Memento, Insomnia, even like all of them. Like,
well, in Insomnia, you're with Pacino from the first scene. Like, when you see what he does and where that leads him down the road, you're invested in what that character does going forward. Is he going to make it worse for himself, or is he going to do what's right? And here, there's kind of none of that. You're like, the Navy's coming. Well, when I say the Navy, the public Navy is coming, right, to help people. And you know that the pilot's patrolling the sky, trying to give cover, even if he's just one man. But the rest of it is just, Harry Styles is in this, right? And I don't know if you're familiar with him. Um, he's a boy bander. He has a very noticeable face. So once he showed up, I was distracted by him, and I can't even tell you the character's name. Like, and he becomes a central figure about what would you say, a third of the way through?
I have no idea who it is, so I have no idea. I don't know.
Okay, so there's the problem. He's the soldier that joins up with the other two that we were following in the beginning.
Oh, okay, right, okay.
Yeah, and he kind of the focus shifts to him, and when they're in the boat, as it's getting shot at. That was the other thing. So Nolan makes us worry about things, but then because of the way that the structure is, we see kind of in the future, because when it shifts to the plane, which is the most recent, given that's an hour, we see how things have become. So to me, it kind of ruins the tension there, because we saw certain things play out before the scenes have played out.
Here, I don't want to, like, I feel like we're being really negative here, and I want to compliment some other things, because there is actually a lot of ideas in this movie that I really like. There's
Kenneth Branagh. I loved his character as the Navy guy in the short stuff that we got to see.
He's whatever. He's just like typical noble war hero man.
Yeah, he gets to make the one joke in the movie. So
oh yeah, true. He makes the one joke in the entire film. He gets to make that.
That was all set up for that, guys. Plus I like saying Branagh.
There's some things I do really like about this movie. I like that it does. I don't think this is much of a spoiler to say that you never actually see a single German soldier in the entire film.
No.
They're this unseen force, and I actually like that. I like this idea that it's this force that you don't ever see.
It's a sense of dread.
I appreciate that. I appreciate that attempt of a sense of dread, that attempt of the horror of the situation where things can happen at any point. Like, I like that. There was a lot of specific choices about what to show and what not to show that I actually really appreciated. But again, I just there's a point where I realised this is all it is, and I was kind of waiting for it to end, if I'm honest. And that kind of hurts to say that. It's like, because someone who loves Nolan's movies, to feel that way halfway through one of his films feels really shit, to be honest. I'm really disappointed.
So I wasn't that bad, because I was enjoying the aviation scenes. So I was kind of just waiting for the next one, and because I liked the way that he shot those. And I can't tell if they were in like actual plane cockpits when they filmed them, or if it was just a bunch of CG. Like, if they were up in the sky, because I wouldn't put it past Nolan. He loves his practical effects. But like the way that they were shot, and when we get the view of him trying to shoot down these enemy planes, it felt like footage I've seen from World War II. And I thought that did a really good job. And for me, it was exciting too, because I like plane elements in movies, especially dogfights. And while these weren't necessarily the best dogfights I've ever watched, I thought they were fun to watch.
The plane stuff did look great. I mean, that's the thing, though. All of it looked great. Like, there's not a sour note in the whole thing.
Yeah.
But
I also like Mark Rylance, because I'll get off the visuals and talk, because like you said, that's easy to do. Yeah. I thought Mark Rylance was really good. Like I mentioned that earlier, with not with his arc, but just there's something going on with him, and it's not quite right, and you don't find out what it is until like the last part of the movie, and it tied that, like, I don't want to say that story up in a bow, but it made that all his actions seem to be more important once you find that piece out, and I like that because he played it the same way throughout.
Honestly, I am disappointed. I can't not be, and I think there's a solid. Like, I wouldn't rate it that.
I'm troubled by this because I'm used to Pete being the Nolan apologist, like Dark Knight Rises, but this is weird for me. I expected me to be in your spot.
I will happily watch Dark Knight Rises again 10 times before I watch this again.
Well,
and I know people are going to roll their eyes at that. I know some people are going to be like, "What, are you insane? What?" Like, here's the thing: like, I actually connect to the characters in that movie. I care about what's going on. I care about the themes. And honestly, what part of my problem with war movies, I think, in general, is that I feel that there's this assumption from the filmmakers that because it's based on a real tragedy, I'm instantly going to care by default before they even do anything. That's not how it works. No, you still have to make me care. I don't care if this is based on a real thing. I don't care if the people involved actually suffered or whatever. You still have to make me care about these people in the movie. and on your terms.
Yeah, I agree there.
And I don't think this movie does that. I think it was fine for like 20-30 minutes, and when I still feel like it was setting things up, and then it felt like, oh wait, it's never actually going to give me any more, and it kept. There was a point where I was just kind of sick of seeing water fill into rooms. There was a point where I was just kind of sick of people swimming away and stuff like that.
There's almost a mathematic formula to how he structured this movie, because when we start seeing water fill stuff, we keep seeing it for like a solid 20 minutes.
I got numb. I got numb to what the movie was doing by the halfway point.
Yeah, once water started filling up one of the ships, I was just like, well, this is a good pee break, because I really have to go. And I came back, and the water was still filling the ship, so I didn't miss anything. See, I expected me going into this. So I leave the movie yesterday, and I go to check in our Facebook group, Mild Fuzz, for those that don't know, to check the discussion thing. And I'm expecting myself to be the negative Nancy on this one. And I go on there, and Pete's just kind of like, yeah, I think it's my least favorite Nolan movie. And I almost dropped my phone. Like, I'm standing outside the theater, and it was a Usual Suspects moment. So this is just weird for me. I don't know. I'm off my game.
Honestly, it's easily my least favorite. I like Dark Knight Rises gets a lot of shit from a lot of people. I like that more. Insomnia often gets ignored by people. I like that more. I care about those characters. I feel
out of his non-Batman movies, this is on the lower end, I think, because I like to separate those two because the Dark Knight movies do feel like they are Nolan movies, but they're Batman movies at the same time, whereas Insomnia, Memento, Inception, and Interstellar, they all have these bigger themes. And not that the Batman movies don't, but yeah, this is definitely at the lower end for me. I think only Insomnia I have lower. And that I don't put that on Nolan because it's still a good watch, but it's a remake.
So right then, full spoilers for Dunkirk from this point on. You have been warned. We're
evacuating the non-spoiler land.
So... Right, so first up, we introduced this character. I have no idea what his name is. But he's basically the main character, for lack of a better... So what I'm going to refer to as is the main character. And he meets this other guy who's silent. And right from the start, like, he's burying a body in the sand, and he's putting on clothes.
Let's call him shifty and silent going forward, because that dude was shifty from the time it started. And granted, nerves of war, right? He's trying to get beyond the thing. But I didn't trust him going forward. And that's a problem. That's your main character.
Here's the thing, I did, because I actually... I guessed who he was and what his whole thing was immediately. I knew he wasn't a German. I was like, no, he's just French.
Oh, no, I'm talking about the other guy that you're calling the main character.
Oh, him?
Yeah.
All right. I never even suspected anything with him.
Really? Wow, okay. We read it differently.
Because, see when the title came out saying the mole, I never actually even thought that was referencing, like, a mole, like a person.
I thought there was a deeper meaning. Having it be Nolan, I
think it's intentional that you might think that, like, is one of these, and I immediately got that, okay, he's probably not just another English soldier, he's probably someone else. But
that's what I was thinking.
But certainly by the time it got to the part where other characters were thinking he was German, it was as soon as one of the generals said, "Oh, we're not helping the French, even though they're on our side." Yeah. As soon as he said that, I'm like, "Oh, he's just a French soldier who's trying to escape." That's all. Like, I got that pretty quickly, which isn't a big deal necessarily. No. But that was just, again, it was just another thing where I'm like, okay, right, there's no real twist to this to me, especially since his story doesn't really go anywhere. He just kind of he ends up dying, like, in one of the segments later on, and it's just kind of like, okay, he's gone now.
Oh, and you already know his intentions. You know he's not a bad guy when he saves everybody on that first ship that sinks, and when he gets hit by the torpedo.
As soon as accusations start coming up, it's like, well, he's done nothing but constantly save people throughout the movie.
Exactly.
So I don't really not trust him, even if he is not what he... I mean, he's not said anything, but even if he's pretending to be someone he's not, I don't even for a second think that he's untrustworthy. And I guess the point there is that when they're all holding their guns up at him, you're supposed to feel bad for him, you're supposed to feel like, no, this is wrong. And I guess you kind of do, like, to a point.
See, I didn't. But I get where they're coming at, that they need to offen the load, right, to get the ship out to sea. But at the same time, I don't think one person's going to do that. Like, you got 20 guys in there. I don't think one dude is going to. So it felt hollow that whole, like, yeah, the scene is intense because anytime you get guys in a room pointing guns at each other, it's gonna feel tense because you know what their intentions are. But yeah, they're just. I was more worried about the incoming water than I was about if he was a German or not. Because that's the greater threat to those guys.
Yeah, so we had that. We had what's his face? I'm forgetting his name now. Like his actor name, Scarecrow, Cillian Murphy.
Oh, Cillian Murphy.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So he sort of the George and Mark Rylance's characters. They find him. They're on the boat and they come across him on some debris on the like a ship that's went down.
Great looking shot.
Right.
Like that.
And they get him. And he's like shell shocked. He doesn't want to do this. And when he finds out they're going back to Dunkirk, they even like kind of question should they lock him in the, down below deck because he might try and stop them and all the rest of it. And he eventually like in a struggle pushes George, the young kid, down the stairs, and that makes him hit his head. He eventually like he can't see, and then by the end of the movie he's dead. Like he's blind.
And he's given an off-screen death that doesn't like. It's so cold.
Well, I didn't mind that. No, because I get the point of that though. The point of that is that it's cold. I don't think that's a complaint.
Okay.
If anything, this is actually at least the best attempt in the movie to actually get some sympathy from the audience, because George at least has a character, and then he's killed. It's all. I mean, maybe that's the intention, that the one person in the entire film that actually has some personality dies.
Yeah.
Like maybe that's kind of the point, is that you feel that.
Well, because he shouldn't be there to begin with, right? He just hops on.
Well, that's true as well, yeah. But that's the point. He feels determined to help. He has a character, so he dies, and Cillian Murphy keeps asking, "Is the kid okay?" Because he doesn't really know. He's pushed him down the stairs. He's kind of concerned about it, and he keeps asking, "Is he okay?" And it's after the kid actually dies that he once again asks the son, "Is the kid going to be okay?" And that's when he finally realizes what he's going through, and he actually decides to lie and say, "Yeah, he's going to be fine." And it's the closest it gets to actually giving me some sort of feeling, because okay, right, he understands what he's going through, and he's going to lie to make him feel better, regardless of what he's done, of the bad thing that's happened. Honestly, it felt kind of a little bit hollow. It felt like too little, too late for me. Even though Cillian Murphy was doing the best they could with it, and even though it was hitting some notes for me, it felt just too little, too late. But this is the thing. This was the thing that I was real disappointed in. So they find Cillian Murphy, and then after our main characters from the beach are on the ship, and they think they're away scot free, and then the ship gets hit by a torpedo. The torpedo coming in looked quite cool, actually. That was a nice shot.
Yeah, it did.
And then the ship sinks. They have the whole Titanic-esque, guys get off the ship as it's sinking, and all the rest of it. And they're swimming to the lifeboats, and Cillian Murphy's character's on the lifeboats, and he's like, "No, we're too full. You have to go back." Back to the beach, there'll be another ship, yada yada yada. And I went, oh shit, it's him. Now we've seen a character in two of the timelines, two parts of the story.
Yep.
Oh, what are we going to do with him? Is there more to his story now that leads to where we see him at in the boat section? And there's nothing. You never see him again in this timeline of the movie. And I was like, really, we're doing nothing with that? I get all excited, because honestly, at this point in the movie, this was when I was starting to feel a little bit disconnected. I was starting to feel a little bit numb to everything that was going on, and then Cillian Murphy showed up in this part of the movie, and I went, oh shit, this is when things are going to start being interesting and start doing something, and there's going to be surprises in store. And then it did nothing with it. It just went back to what it had been. Honestly, yeah, by the time like that ship sank is when I was starting to lose interest. And then when we went back to the beach, and it was them going to this little boat, and then we had all the standoff and the bullet holes with the water coming in. All of that, by that point in the movie, I was kind of out. I was disconnected. I was no longer engrossed, and I was just kind of checking my watch and being like, okay, how long have we got left?
Oh man, yeah.
That's where it lost me.
Yeah, I was the least invested in the soldiers on the land, and I liked the sea and the air portions.
I was, even though what they were doing was wrong, I was still invested when they were trying to sneak on the boat, and it didn't work. And I was still somewhat invested because, like you say, you've got that heroic moment where Frenchie goes back to open the door, to open the hatch.
Yeah,
and that was fine. But it was after that. It was once we start to go back to the beach and stuff where I was just starting to lose interest in what was going on, and it hurts to say that. It really does.
It does.
If my thoughts are more scattered than usual, I apologise. I feel like I'm having a hard time
He is.
control
He's coping with it.
my thoughts in this. I really am.
I like Tom Hardy's. His whole through line is he gets hit by enemy fire early on, and his fuel gauge gets broken. So he's on this ticking clock of not knowing exactly how much fuel he has. Yeah. And I like that as a device because they're in the smallest time set, right? It's an hour of their time that we're spending with them versus a day in a week.
Theirs is like the closest to real time, I guess, in terms of the
movie. And so I liked him and Collins. I remember that's the only other character's name I remember is the other pilot that gets downed and ends up.
I remember he's Scottish. That was my one thing. I remember his friend being Scottish, but that was I couldn't tell.
Also, the other character that stood out was the other Scottish guy on the boat that's trying to escape with the main characters. Was in The Force Awakens. He's the random Scottish guy.
Oh, is it?
That tells Han that he owes money to the Conja clan.
I didn't recognize him. Obviously, I heard the voice because like he's shouting out, things in the thick accent. It's hard not to notice him. Yeah, Collins is okay as a character. He's kind of like they did the whole thing where his plane gets shot down. Hardy waves at him, thinking he's okay, but when the boat gets to him, he's actually sinking. He can't get out of the cockpit. He's stuck. Yeah, he's actually waving for help. But the boat gets to him and it's just like fine. I'm disconnected. If I have to sum up my feeling on this movie, it is visually stunning, but I was disconnected for most of it, and I was kind of watching it knowing it was a movie. Like I could see the edge of the screen. I know that's like a weird thing to say, but it just like I could see the box around it, and I was like, okay, I'm just watching something happen on a screen.
You didn't see it in glorious 70 millimeters, so you didn't have to. Mine, I had no box. It was great.
And then the ending, honestly, like, okay, it was nice, like, because George at one point says, like, oh, he wanted to do something that he'd get him in the paper, and at the end, over the montage, when everyone gets back, his friend goes to the paper and gets him in there and says, hero, only 17 dies at Dunkirk, whatever.
See, and I don't know if it's Zimmer's score or if it's the Churchill speech, because he's, like, one of the greatest orators that's ever been, recorded. That got me a little, but I still think that's not as much Nolan as it is just...
It didn't, and I'll tell you why it didn't, is because that's for me is where it just went into the usual saccharine war hero movie speech at the end.
Yeah. Well, I guess I was a little bit familiar with that speech coming in, being a history nerd. So to hear it and after seeing what we had seen at Dunkirk, I don't know, that hit me and I started to get a little misty, but, by that point it's too little too late, but yeah, I guess I'll just put that on Zimmer then, because he's a wizard with the music.
Yeah, Zimmer's good.
The score I thought was pretty good. It was tense when it needed to be, and I usually don't notice the score, so I think that's big.
I'll be honest, I didn't notice it that much. I thought I had its good moments. I don't think it stood out to me as much though as some of his other collaborations with Nolan. So there was a whole thing towards the end where the soldiers were assuming they were going to be shunned in the streets for losing. Like, oh, we're failures. We're coming back. We didn't win.
Yeah.
And like, because they think there's a blind guy handing out, like, because when they get off the boat when they're back in England, there's this blind guy handing out like blankets and what food or whatever, and they think, oh, he can't even look at us because we failed. And then obviously we end with those two characters on the train and like. They think they're going to be shunned, and then there's these kids run up when the train stops next to the window and hand them drinks, and it's like, okay.
I like the cut of that kid's jib. He's like 9, and he's handing out beers to soldiers.
Different time period, Matt. Different time.
I know, but I just like that he was just like, did he have those on standby? Was he drinking those? And he was just like, oh, I'm going to share with these guys. I like that though. That was another bit of humor. But yeah. That was kind of rough, that point of it.
I don't know. Do you know what it was, though? It's because it felt like it came out of nowhere. Like, the rest of the movie, no one even mentions, like, they're worried about...
the idea that they're retreating, and it's not a retreat, it's an evacuation. It's like a tactical thing.
Yeah, they're just surviving. Like that's what it just feels like they're surviving all movie. And then all of a sudden, when they're on the way home, they're like, oh, we're going to be seen as failures. Everyone's going to hate us.
Yeah.
It just felt like it came out of nowhere towards the end. I don't know.
Yeah. No, I agree. I didn't even think about it till now. But yeah,
it makes
0 sense.
Honestly, the movie as a whole feels very sterile, and it feels less like a movie and more like a fictionalized raw footage account of the events.
Yeah, like when you're watching a TV show and it says dramatized for whatever,
Yeah.
Have you seen Five Came Back yet? It's the Netflix documentary about the
No.
filmmakers going to World War II. It feels very much like one of those, which they weren't quite propaganda, but they were, the Hollywood studios let these five directors kind of make the films they wanted. And, a lot of them just shot real life footage to show the people back home what was going on. It kind of felt like that, only this wasn't real footage. It was recreation. So I guess that's good for Nolan because he attained that, but there's less story there than, the real life type thing.
I'm running out of things to. I feel like I've not been able to go through it sort of and talk about all the various elements that I normally do because I'm too busy being shell shocked that, that I don't love Nolan's new
You're
film.
like Cillian Murphy here, man. Like you're gonna push somebody.
I don't know. I feel, and it's not like I don't think it's a bad movie. It's not my kind of movie overall. I don't love it. I felt disconnected. It feels kind of cold.
Yeah.
And as a result, like I don't think I'm going to watch it again.
Oh, see, I'm still gonna have it for the collection.
I think,
And I'll give it a rewatch. Like if it's on like HBO, there's certain things I'll tune in for. Like again, I did like Mark Rylance and I like the aviation stuff, so I'll probably tune in for those parts. But yeah, this is not something where like, oh, I'm in the mood to watch Dunkirk today. Not like The Prestige or Inception. Like I get that Inception thing like twice a year where I need to watch that.
Like I say, we did Memento just this past week for Influx, me and Connor, and there's moments of that movie where it hits me hard, and I feel the emotion from it, and I love what it's playing with, and the ideas that it's playing with, and the subtext that's going on. And here I feel like there's not a lot of subtext. It's very just on the surface. Need to survive. I don't feel like
He's distressed.
I am distressed. I had a point I wanted to make and that. Okay, right. That's not the same point, but I want to talk about this. I want to point out like. Obviously, I was like, okay, it's a war movie, so I'm probably going to like it as much as the rest, but I'm hoping I'll still really love it. Then the reviews hit, right? The embargo lifted start of the week, I think, and it was like, high 90% on Rotten Tomatoes and all that. And some of the quotes that these critics were coming out with, some of them were saying, oh, it's maybe Nolan's best movie, and it's maybe this, and and the one that really sticks out to me, though, because, I mean, it's one thing for someone to say it's maybe his best movie, okay, opinions differ, like, people have different orders of things and whatever, right, all fine. But the one I remember, it was like, oh, it feels like the narrative structure in Memento and The Prestige were just tests for what he does in Dunkirk. It was all building up to Dunkirk, and I don't get it at all. I feel like Dunkirk doesn't even scratch the surface of what those two movies do with the narrative structure.
I mean, so I did some research on this last night, and he wrote this script like 25 years ago. So it's been in his brain since then. So I can kind of see how they say that those other two were a test, but I don't feel like if this is the test, it kind of fails because, like you just said, the other two do it better. So
I think if he had this script a long time ago, it's obviously something he wanted to make. Obviously, he's successful enough where they're going to give him the money to achieve it. Like it's the reason why you could do Memento on a low budget is because it's a smaller film and you can do it with little money but now he's this huge superstar. He can do what he wants. He's obviously said I want to do Dunkirk, and Warner Brothers have been like, yes, by all means, make us money. They're quite happy to hand it over.
Yeah.
And it is a passion project, and that's why it's kind of a shame. It's a shame that a passion project for him is probably the least interesting film that I think he's made. And I legitimately feel that way. I really just wasn't into it all that much at all. I felt very... I felt like he's doing all this fancy stuff with these technical side of things, with the camera work, and I almost felt alienated as a viewer. Like I'm not being paid attention to it, and that's a weird thing to feel when you're watching a movie. Like the filmmaker's not paying attention to you. But that's kind of how I felt once it got to a certain
little
point.
weird.
But no, I clearly this is something you want to make, and that's fine. I'm glad it's out of his system. I really am. Because I will be very disappointed going forward if more of his films start feeling more like this and less like his back catalogue.
Yeah, I'm a little worried about it just because of Interstellar, which I did enjoy, but felt a little not nearly as sterile as this. But there was that sterile, space thing with it, and then we get this. I want him to make a fun movie that's like fun for the sake of it, and not Bond because I don't want him doing Bond.
Yeah, I don't want him doing Bond either because I don't like James Bond.
But like,
If he ends up doing James Bond after a war movie, that is like the worst double bill of Nolan projects ever for me.
yeah, like I want him to do his Indiana Jones, whatever that is, where Spielberg did that because he couldn't get Bond. I kind of want him to do something that he thinks is fun, like Inception. I feel like that was his like last fun of his movies, you know. So get back to that.
I don't even have a particular thing I want him to do. I want him to do something that excites him, but something that's not Dunkirk. Is basically because everything else he's done I've loved to varying degrees. It's just this. I mean, part of it's taste, part of it is that, you know, it's admittedly I'm not like a huge war movie guy, but part of it is a genuine disconnect with what's going on because I don't feel like the heart of the movie's there. I feel like that's missing. It's missing that, and it tries to do it with George. They try to use George as the heart of the movie, and for me, it just felt a little bit too shallow for it to work. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of where I stand. It's kind of where I stand. Oh my god, let's put this out of its misery. This has been
let's do it.
A shambles of a talk. I guess we're doing ratings.
I'm gonna go 7, because again, on a technical level, it's so good. I still enjoyed it. I'm still telling people if you're interested to go see it, but compared to some of the other things I've seen this year, just the summer, it doesn't have that staying power.
Yeah. Honestly, I'm probably going to go with a 7 as well, because as much as I've been very negative, it's because I'm disappointed it's not amazing. It's disappointing that I don't love it. It's disappointing that I don't feel a connection to these characters. But it is a technical marvel. It's a very cold film. It's something that I would recommend you watch once. But yeah. I don't know if you'd want to watch it beyond that. It's a weird place to be in. So I'm going to go with a 7 as well. But I will say this. I am shocked that, you know, we had 4 well-reviewed movies in a row. And I never thought I'd come out of this, you know, last 4-week period and say, no, I preferred Spider-Man to the new Nolan movie. I preferred Baby Driver to the new Nolan movie, and I preferred War of the Apes. Now, War of the Apes, admittedly, always had that chance.
Yeah,
because that was
true.
That was amazing. You know, I like most of Nolan's movies more than I liked Homecoming. You know, Spider-Man: Homecoming. I like most of Nolan's movies more than Baby Driver, but not Dunkirk. And that's not to put them down. They're great movies. Like I'm not.
Yeah.
I don't want to put things down.
I'm with you.
Yeah.
I'm with you. I expected this to take the title this summer thus far. Especially coming up, like we're hitting more of a bit of a dead zone after, you know, the summer. So yeah, it's weird. It's definitely a weird one.
It's a shame. I'm kind of disillusioned by it. I'm not going to lie. So here we are. That is Dunkirk. So let us know what you think of the movie in the comments below. You may have liked it a lot more because I am seeing a lot of people who love it. Like there is definitely a large, welcoming reception for this film. But clearly there's a lot of us as well who feel kind of empty about it. So let us know what you think in the comments. Like, subscribe, all that stuff. Get us on Twitter at mail_fuzz for channel updates. If you want to support the channel, head over to patreon.com/mailfuzztv. Have a look over there at some of the bonuses you can get. But that is us. So once again, thank you very much for watching. Keep watching movies, and we'll see you next time, which will not be next week because we don't have a movie next week. I think that next one will maybe be Dark Tower. I'll have to check the schedule, but it's a couple of weeks. But we'll see you then, whatever it may be. So thanks for watching, guys. Goodbye.